It was supposed to be a short flight Los Angeles to Denver. I'd taken it a dozen times. I even had a window seat, to 2A, the kind where you lean your head against the cold pane and disappear into your thoughts. I remember the scent of the cabin and synthetic, a mixture of pressurized air, coffee, and cheap cologne. The plane, a Boeing 737, lifted off without trouble. No delays, no fuss. My backpack was under the seat in front of me, packed with my laptop, a half-eaten protein bar, and the first draft of the novel I'd been working on for over a year. Funny how small things can feel enormous when you think they might be the last you ever touch. To my left was a teenage boy, probably 16, with oversized headphones and a gaming laptop. He barely looked up when the plane took off. To my right, across the aisle, a woman in her 30s kept glancing at her phone and sighing. Turbulence was light. The sky was clear, until it wasn't. Somewhere over Utah, about an hour into the flight, there was a sound, not loud, but wrong. A kind of metallic groan, followed by a pop like when a Coke can gets crushed in slow motion. I looked around. No one else reacted at first. Then the second sound hit a deep thud, like something massive shifting under pressure. The fasten seatbelt sign dinged, and a moment later, the plane shuddered, dipping slightly to the right. That's when the masks dropped. Oxygen masks. People say time slows down in moments of terror. They're right, but what they don't tell you is that your mind goes somewhere else, someplace ancient, primitive. All I could think was, put on the mask. Don't scream, don't scream. The flight attendant, a young man with a buzz cut and panic in his eyes, tried to calm us. But even he was fumbling for his own mask. That's when the plane tilted. Not slightly. Not a bump of turbulence. A hard roll left, then right, then a steep drop that sent my stomach into my throat. People screamed. Someone yelled that we were going down. They were right. The pilot's voice cracked through the intercom. Calm, but rushed. Brace for impact. That was all he said. The next 10 seconds felt like hours. We broke through the clouds. I could see the terrain below, snow-covered trees, jagged rocks, distant mountains. We weren't above a city. We were alone, falling. The woman across the aisle grabbed her phone and started crying. She whispered something I couldn't hear. The boy next to me muttered, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," over and over, fingers digging into the seat. I wrapped my arms around my knees, bent forward, and waited. The crash wasn't like the movies. No explosion, no fireball, just violence. The sound of metal screaming as it tore through trees. The cabin lurched and buckled. Lights went out. Something hit me in the head. And then darkness. When I opened my eyes, everything was white. For a moment, I thought I was dead. But then the cold bit into my skin, sharp and real. Snow. I was lying in snow. The plane, what was left of it, had broken into at least 3 massive chunks. One of the wings was lodged in a tree. The cockpit was gone. Bodies were scattered. Across the slope, some were still, others moaning. The teenage boy beside me had vanished. His seat was gone, just torn metal and blood. I was alive. Somehow, my leg hurt badly. My jeans were ripped and stained red. I tried to stand, screamed, and collapsed. But the pain reminded me, I was here. I was alive. A groan behind me. I turned. The flight attendant, his name tag read Chris, was crawling toward a chunk of fuselage. His face was bleeding. One eye swollen shut. "Help," he said, barely audible. "Help the others." There were others. Over the next few hours, the survivors gathered. There were 12 of us, out of the original 1 for 3. Some were injured, some in shock. A mother cradling her child, who hadn't survived. A man in a business suit with a broken arm. Chris, the flight attendant, took charge. Or tried to. He moved from person to person, helping, organizing. I think it gave him something to hold onto. We had no signal. No flares. Just the emergency packs from the wreckage, tiny water bottles, survival blankets, first aid kits. The temperature was dropping fast. As night fell, the full scope of our situation hit me. No food, minimal shelter, no idea if anyone knew where we were. And the crash site was miles from anything resembling civilization. We didn't know it yet, but we were in for 6 days in the wilderness. The cold that night was inhuman. It clung to the bones and scraped at our skin. The emergency blankets barely helped. Some of us huddled inside the broken fuselage, using seats and luggage to block the wind. I kept hearing the same question in my head. How are we going to survive? Chris assigned basic tasks, searching for supplies, tending to the wounded. A woman named Leela, a nurse, took care of 2 men with deep gashes. I helped collect anything useful: clothes, water bottles, protein bars, even luggage that could double as insulation. That night, the crying didn't stop. Some of it came from the living, some of it from those cradling the dead. I didn't sleep. None of us did. The next morning, reality hit harder than the crash itself. The food was gone. Only a few snack bars had survived, and they were divided among the children and injured. I gave mine to Lila's patient, a guy named Marcus who had a cracked rib and could barely breathe. We took inventory. No working phones, The emergency beacon was destroyed. Chris said the black box would signal our last known location, but with the weather, it could take days. Wolves came that night. We heard them first, a distant howl, then another, closer. We took shifts, staying awake, armed with metal rods, broken seat legs, whatever we could find. I stood beside a man named Brian, a former firefighter. If they get too close, he said, we build a fire. Wolves hate fire, but we had no matches. No lighter, just steel and desperation. We managed to make fire. Chris remembered reading about using the battery from a plain phone and steel wool. It worked. A small smoky flame came to life, and we fed it scraps of seat fabric, a tray table, even parts of an airline manual. The fire kept the wolves away, but it couldn't stop the cold. One man, an older gentleman named Henry, didn't wake up that morning. He'd frozen in his sleep. It changed us, made us realize just how fragile survival really was. There was no time for grief. We wrapped Henry's body and moved it away from camp. That night, we told stories around the fire. Real stories. Brian had been in 9/11s. Leela lost her sister to cancer. Chris admitted this was his first month as a flight attendant. And me, I confessed that I was scared, that I didn't want to die here. No one judged me. We decided someone had to leave stay, and we risked dying slowly. Walk, and maybe just maybe we find help. Brian, Chris, and I volunteered. We had some basic supplies, including a compass from the cockpit wreckage. We estimated the nearest road was at least 10 miles west, based on the map we found in a torn flight manual. Problem was, we didn't know how accurate it was or how far we had drifted off course before the crash. We left at dawn. Every step hurt. My leg was still swollen, but I wrapped it tightly and pushed forward. We trudged through knee-deep snow, the wind howling like a living thing. Chris slowed down halfway through. He'd cracked 2 ribs in the crash, but didn't want to say anything. At dusk, we spotted something, a faint trail, old tire tracks half buried in snow. It was real. We followed it until we saw a wooden structure ahead, a ranger station, abandoned, but with a radio. Brian got it working. The rescue team arrived the next day. A helicopter hovered above us, its blades throwing snow into our faces like confetti. I cried. I didn't mean to, but I cried like a kid. So did Chris. So did Brian. The team split half returned with us to the crash site. When the others at the wreckage saw the red cross on the helicopter, some dropped to their knees. I'll never forget that sound, the roar of blades. The wail of human relief. We were saved. They airlifted us to a hospital in Colorado Springs. I spent 5 days there, torn ligament, mild frostbite, a concussion. But I was alive. Only 8 of us made it. The news exploded. Plane crash in Rockies, 8 survivors. Our names were all over the media. People called us miracles, heroes, fighters, but I didn't feel like one. In the quiet of my hospital room, I thought about Henry, and the boy who sat next to me, and the woman cradling her dead child. I thought about the way the snow looked on the second morning, so peaceful, so cruel. I wrote it all down. Every moment, every sound, every choice, because that's what survivors do. We remember. It's been a year since the crash. I still limp when it rains. Chris now trains new flight attendants. Leela opened a trauma therapy clinic in Denver. Brian hikes every weekend. The mountains don't scare him anymore. As for me, I finished my novel, but I wrote another book to this story. Not for fame, not for pity, but because someone, somewhere, might need to hear that survival is possible, even when the world falls.